guest tonight is Cody Wilson of Defense Distributed. He's going to talk to us about a letter he got earlier today telling him to pretty much remove stuff from his site. All right, Cody, first of all, I want to shake your hand, sir, and congratulate you. I was very excited, I'm sure as many people were, when I saw the first printable gun actually fire. I saw you yourself. You seem to be pretty overcome with some feelings there.
Yeah, it was the result of many months of work, and all in one moment, you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah, you had to take a moment and savor it. I thought it was a great piece. I really enjoyed that. Now let's get down to the brass tacks. You were on the Alex Jones show earlier today, and you broke the story here. Correct? You did break it here?
Yeah, I told Alex. I had just received the email like 10 minutes ago, and I was just teasing out what to do with it, and Alex calls.
All right, tell us what happened when you received this email. What was the email?
The email is from the Secretary of State, Department of Defense Trade Controls. They administer the Arms Export Control Act and what's called the ITAR. There are certain pieces of information and goods that are on the United States munitions list. These things are regulated munitions, and that organization has the ability to control the export or the trade of those goods, especially across state or international lines.
Right.
And among the things they can regulate is technical data and information, images, anything really related to the arms, not just the arms themselves, any of the data. They can assert information control. So back in December when we started this project, we knew ITAR would be an issue. As an arms manufacturer, we registered ITAR, but we thought since Defense Distributed would be a nonprofit software company, we could not have to register for ITAR because we were just a software company, and then not interested in actual trade of arms. And then number two, we could basically claim a public domain exemption from the ITAR, and we wouldn't have to ask permission to put the files up for download. Most people probably don't know that gun-related files might be regulated, and you have to actually ask permission to put them online. But
really? Okay.
We wanted to take the exception. But I wanted to do it without first asking permission because my reading of the law felt sound, and full speed ahead was my opinion back in December.
And you're a law student, so you're familiar with the laws.
Well, right. So thankfully I had access to Westlaw and Lexis, and I read the laws for myself. And then this is a subject that has come up many times over the months. Well, what are you going to do about ITAR? What is Defense Distributed going to do about ITAR? And I think we have a good solution. In fact, we claimed a couple different ways to find exemptions under the public domain exception of ITAR. But again, it seems that DTCC wants to have a sit down and talk about it. And they cite certain parts of the ITAR, which is a signal that they may bring criminal prosecutions or civil penalties or something. So it's not a good day for the project, but it was expected. And we released, especially the Liberator, in such a good way that it's definitely online forever. And especially with news of this censorship, I don't think it will ever disappear. So that's a success, even if Defense Distributed or DEFCAT is somehow indefinitely shut down.
Exactly. Now, you talk about the you had to be regulated even if you have an online software. So how long was this a issue for you? Were you thinking about this back when you had the lower receivers, when you had the magazines? At what point did this come to the forefront of your mind?
Phil, the case of Phil Zimmerman was brought up to me before we even had our first 3D printer. They go, hey, you know, they'll probably come after you like they came after Phil Zimmerman. And he was the inventor of pretty good privacy, the PGP scheme, basically, that allows people to communicate through strong cryptography. At the time, the United States considered that piece of software also to be a munition governed by the Arms Export Control Act, and they started a criminal investigation of Mr. Zimmerman once he put it online. But eventually they abandoned the investigation because he had popularized, or the public itself had adopted PGP so well, it was just kind of already out of the bag, you know? And to me, I mean, I understand that this software seems more closely related to guns, and so there might be a different case, but the parallels seem pretty strong. At the end of the day, these are just bits. They're not actual bombs.
Okay. So with that in mind, do you expect, or is there anything that you're bracing for as far as criminal charges?
No, I mean, I don't think there's reason to expect criminal charges yet. We've got lawyers. I think I've got people who, this is in good hands with other people who can now carry on the communications with DTCC. It's my intention to comply. It's my belief that we've complied the whole time. I don't think we carried out our actions in a spirit of non-compliance.
Right.
So I expect a good result, but I'm prepared that if this is a political kind of reprisal, that, yeah, bad things might be coming. But again, if I could do it over, I'd do it the same.
Do it the same way. Because you told Alex earlier today, he said, are you being ordered? Are you being requested? And you said at this point you are being requested to remove the materials.
I've not had many communications with federal agencies, but I assume most things are requests. I don't know, but they seem to be pretty heavy requests. Once you've got
pretty adamant that we strongly suggest you do exactly what we do. We do exactly what we tell you.
So yeah, okay. You know, who am I? But perhaps this can be resolved, and perhaps this is exactly what this project needed to do, to create, let's have this conversation now. Is the future going to be one of managed information and control from bureaucracies, saying
Right.
who can shift information online and who can publish what? Or is it going to be one informed by distributed technologies like 3D printing and the internet, where most people can just pass information to each other uninhibited?
And that's what we see with CISPA and the other things. They don't want the information to be trafficked to anybody other than the people they control.
I see nothing but two competing visions of the future. Our vision of the future won over the weekend, in just a sense that, like, one day you might be able to print a gun. It's a very impractical way of doing it, but one day you might be able to, because look, it works. It's a story about what techno-libertarianism means from here on.
Right.
They need to respond to that. And I think this is a political response. They need to assert some demonstration, some signal that they still are in control. And I really mean it in that way, because there's plenty of sites online that share gun files that operate today. And 3D printing isn't the first way that you're ever going to make a gun. That Liberator pistol is not the thing that you want to be shooting. But they needed to answer some way.
Oh, yeah. And you have the establishment just shaking to their core. Every week I turn on, one of the big networks, and it's somebody, oh, this Cody Wilson guy down in Texas, he's making guns that you can print on your computer, and these guys are just shaking in their boots.
And they should be, but because there's so much misunderstanding. It's like the regulatory imagination had convinced everyone involved in Washington, the East Coast and the West Coast, that, yeah, we had this all under control. And now people have been making guns at home since you could make guns. And
yeah, the zip guns, long before printers.
It's interruptive of the idea that it's inevitable they could control it. It's like, it's an ideological victory. It is that. And I think it's a sign that, like the liberalization of information actually does have material consequences now. Not tomorrow, but now. And so they just have to do whatever they think they can do. I wonder how much success they'll have. And of course, it's my intention to fight this as far as it can be fought. I wonder, though, if they'll press it.
I think they will. I mean, it's only speculation at this point. But I want to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the advances you've made since you first started. When did you first start? What was your first project? And how have you seen your works advanced until today?
I mean, in many ways, we haven't really advanced. We in the end...
I'd say you advanced. I mean, you started out with magazines, and now you have a fully operable gun. It's probably not the thing you want to take into combat, but it works.
So the story of the project seems like a story of advancement, but the project begins with saying, well, we'd like to use an FDM printer to print a handgun. We think it might be possible. And while we have to wait these many months to get a license, we don't want to be forgotten about. And then there becomes the gun control debate across the nation, and we thought, well, there's all kinds of things we can legally make now without a license. So we began making lower receivers and magazines, and I thought each one of those articles, especially when they had their moment of attention in the press, it was worth demonstrating that these could be made more expediently on 3D printers than people expected. You could use this technology to do this, and this, in fact, had ideological significance. It was a competing story of the future, and I thought it was a way of taking the maker's story and saying, yes, it also means guns. We were achieving so much then. But again, it was mostly because we were waiting on a license to actually begin prototyping guns like the Liberator.
Okay, so we see the what I call advancing. Maybe just say it's it's a different chapter of the story. But you say they could be made more expediently using a printer. So how long did it take you to make that gun, the Liberator?
The Liberator takes at least 20 hours of printing. If you get all the pieces right. Sometimes you'll mess up,
How many rough drafts do you guys go through to come up with something, not just for the Liberator? Let's start with something simple like a magazine.
Well, so we don't know anything, so it's trial and error, especially in the very beginning. My first magazine, we were out on the range. The dimensions were all wrong, and the mag catch slot was wrong. We were out on the range cutting it with keys because I forgot to bring a knife and a file. I mean, it was just very bare bones, just very, very amateur. But we had that working in a couple days, and then you just keep going. You try new ideas. Sometimes you make a little step forward. Sometimes you're set back. And so it's countless iterations on all the pieces. The Liberator has only been made successfully just a few times because we started testing barrels first. Oh, barrels work. That's an advancement. Then we started testing springs. And then we found the ones that we liked the best. And then we tried to put them into an assembly, which represents this rather... Maybe it's an ugly gun. I don't know, but it's the first.
I think that is a beautiful piece, and I'm not kissing this guy, but I'm really excited about this technology, especially with all the gun grabbing that's going on right now. But let's talk about that for a second. We see Feinstein, we see Joe Biden, we see all these other people. They want to have a very tight control. We're not taking away your guns. We're just taking away certain parts of guns or certain types of guns. So when we see things like this, I mean, there are a lot of people that are scared, not just, politicians, soccer moms, anybody who doesn't really understand firearms. So what would you say to somebody who's against this technology just at a base level?
Well, that's great in my mind that they're against an entire technology. And I think neoliberalism, especially, like they should feel some dissonance, because to be against an entire technology is to like be against history in this sense, because we all share at least this cultural sense that technology only advances.
Right.
And so to be against this is to kind of become a reactionary. And I want to demonstrate, especially to some of the people who are on the fence, that their politicians are reactionaries. They're not interested in controlling guns. They're interested in controlling the future itself and basically all the levers of social administration.
I want to talk a little bit about your political philosophy, or should I say. You said that you're a self-proclaimed anarchist. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just claim, sure. I claim affinity with traditional anarchism. I like crypto anarchy. That's a really cool way of...
Yeah, and I'm not trying to beat you down. Just,
no,
you know,
okay.
people like, they have this anarchist on, and you know, so just can you briefly explain, like, what does this tie into what your anarchy goals are?
I thought, though, the big reason that I thought this project was worth pushing is because it was such a sensational way of unpacking some of this ideology and maybe even mainstreaming it in a way that it hadn't been done in a long time. And anarchism is basically the idea that there should be no rulers or political betters in society, that politically we don't have to have hierarchical structures and top-down command systems that then tell us, oh, look, you're in charge of yourself because you elected a ruler to tell you what to do. Isn't that great? Look at how in charge of yourself you are. No, it's a philosophy about self-liberation and self-management. And in this philosophy, you can engage and mutually associate with anyone you want, live in whatever community. You like direct democracy? Go work in a workers' commune that organizes itself by direct democracy. That's great. You want to do some seasteading? Go out, do some seasteading and organize according to some kind of constitution you like. But it's a very federal view of how humankind can operate, and a very mutualistic view. There's no command system that with force tells you what you're going to do, the taxes you're going to pay, or else.
And we see, you know, Obama and other people, not just Obama, but we see people who take means such as firearms to protect themselves, people in military and so forth, and definitely the military needs arms. But they want to say that they don't want you to have the means to go out and buy, let alone make your own firearm.
Yeah, you can see that, right? They have to put up with the fact that the Second Amendment is so well protected. But if anything makes gun production expedient, oh boy, better stop that.
Well, let me ask you this, because I thought about you and your technologies when I heard Obama this past week. I believe it was this week. He went down to Mexico and he blamed the U.S. for the arms flowing into Mexico. And I was like, isn't this guy the head of an administration that had Operation Fast and Furious that gave guns to Mexican drug cartels? There's all these talks about background checks. This guy, under his administration, gave firearms to Mexican drug cartels, people who we knew were criminals. So what did you think about that?
I don't think we should hold Obama accountable for things. I mean, he just reads what's put up in front of him. You know, he's just a suit at the end.
My deal with Obama, not to cut you off, but, you know, just to talk about the debate of it, I mean, he's yet to hold anybody really accountable. And I'm not like one of these people, I blame everything on Bush, I blame everything on Obama. I'm not blaming these people personally.
I'm just saying, like, I don't take him seriously. I don't think he's a serious force in American politics. He's just kind of a figurehead, and he's, like, given all this moral authority, but really he's not consequential. What I'm more worried about is, like, the hierarchical structures that exist under him, and what they're given the power to do, and like basically the power that they give to themselves to be able to do outside of even democratic control. I see nothing but like accelerating and like billowing bureaucratic structures, which basically create a society where everything is prohibited and you must find some path for permission. This conditions the human psyche, and I think is unnatural. And I'm trying to fight against it ideologically. And I think that gun is a powerful symbol that allows me to do that.
Exactly. And the reason I say I thought about your technology when he was making the speech, because I thought about all the people, the good people in Mexico who don't have means to protect themselves from the roving cartels. I mean, we've shown several pieces of footage. It's on the mainstream as well. It's one of the few things they will cover. These roving gangs in Mexico with their fully automatic firearms terrorizing the population.
Right, of course, there's so much hypocrisy, of course. Like, there's this senator on the East Coast, I think it's Jersey or something, he's talking about arming the Syrian, Syrian-resistant al-Nusra and the Free Syrian Army.
They've already been arming.
Yeah, but at the same time, his home state is a gun control state. I mean, there's these severe inadequacies and what I would call, you know, like massive cognitive distances.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm more interested in the irony that, like, Obama could be in Austin today, right? I'm in Austin, we're both in Austin. Obama could be here, right, simultaneously giving a speech about the future of manufacturing and talking about his 3D printing initiative. And then I could be getting shut down by his administration because, in fact, my project represents the future of manufacturing and 3D printing. There's this strange tension where basically the signal is that, sure, it's going to be the future, but it's going to be directed and managed, and we're going to be in control of it. And if it actually is subversive and threatens to develop and manage itself outside of control schemes, it must be stopped.
Exactly.
You can see that today.
So just briefly for the few members of our audience who aren't familiar with you and your works, can you just tell us some of the things that you've been able to produce with your 3D printer? Did you have anything before the magazines?
Yeah, the very first things we started printing were lower receivers of AR-15s. We made some progress there in December, but then Sandy Hook happened and magazines were on the block, and we thought that was just so easy to do. So we did AR-15 and AK-70 or AK-47 magazines. And then we came back around to the lower receivers and got them in a pretty good place where they could do many hundreds of rounds before they showed any signs of real stress. And then the licenses came through in March, and we started prototyping handguns.
Right. I'm definitely excited about this technology. You know, if you're able to continue on this path, you know, what's going to be the next thing for you?
Well, you know, I'm interested in having this fight. So we're having a fight about what information control means. I'm interested in having the fight in the civil realm as well about what intellectual property means.
And that's a very good point. It's not just, you know, the right to manufacture. It's, you know, how are people going to react to this? You know, do I have to ask your permission, you know, to make X, Y, and Z in my garage? I'm
kind of optimistic. You know, call me naive, but I'm kind of optimistic we can start changing minds on what should be protected by property rights and what shouldn't. And I think 3D printing is a great way of opening up that conversation as well.
All right. Now, so you're in law school. I just want to ask you maybe a little bit of a personal question. So you're studying law. Where are you studying law at?
I'm studying law here at the University of Texas.
Okay.
Here in Austin.
And have you found that helps you anyway, maybe navigating the legal aspects of your situation?
I wouldn't recommend people go to law school right now because of job placement figures, but studying the law is very helpful. One, because it demystifies some of it to you. You think you live in a nation of laws, but this is a fiction. It's mostly politics, and it's mostly social administrative legislation where they try to find
It's not laws, it's politics.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
that.
They try to explain away what they're doing, you know, put it in some cubbyhole that has legally been invented. This is good. That's healthy for you. And at the same time, it does help you read criminal statutes. It does help you learn about contracts. I mean, it's worth doing. It's worth studying, but at the same time, it doesn't have the efficacy many people think that it might.
Now, let me ask you this last question. We talked on, you know, the group saying that I don't want this technology out. Inevitably, let's say this technology is able to continue, right? And 3D printers become cheaper and more available. You know, there's the notion that maybe someday there's going to be some kid who makes one of these printers, you know, in his garage.
Oh, you mean the gun?
Yeah, makes one of these guns in his garage. Do you have any feelings about that? I mean, let's say some kid accidentally shoots himself with one of these things that he made himself.
I just don't think that we're raising new questions, honestly. And one, I think a kid can still make a zip gun easier than a 3D printed gun, especially like, so this kid that kills himself will probably be middle class or upper middle class because 3D printers are expensive right now. But, you know, fast forward, okay, these questions are going to be asked, but I just don't think they're essentially new ones. I don't think 3D printing somehow changed the responses to those questions. And so I really don't want to act like this is the first time this has ever happened.
No, it's happened, you know, plenty of times before.
Yeah, but I guess that is a dodge of your question. What I'm more concerned about is that 3D printing won't develop as a technology. It won't get cheaper. It won't be adopted because there's so many interest groups who have their own little corner of it staked out that they say, well, you know, everything else, sure, but, you know, we really need to protect design patents, utility patents. It's probably dangerous for you to make low receivers, magazines, and handguns for yourself. So let's put that off as well. And you know what? Like, while we're at it, you know, we shouldn't make medical devices. That's really more for the FDA. So what can these things make? Why would you adopt them if every interest group has its own share of what you can do with your property?
Cody Wilson, your final thoughts?
I think information will be free, and it wants to be.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, man. Really appreciate you coming in. Good luck on your technologies.
Thanks, man.
And it's technologies, advances like this that get me excited. You guys can see I was really excited in that interview. And people say, well, you like printable guns, but you don't like drones. It's not that I don't like drones. I don't like the way drones are being used. When they carpet bomb a wedding party full of 100 people to kill one guy, when they kill little kids, then say, oh, no, that was a dog. That's the things I don't like about drones. I think drones could be great for search and rescue missions, putting out forest fires, things like that, but not to bomb people and definitely not use Pakistanis as a beta test to perfect your weaponry. So definitely interested in seeing what advances the printable guns can make. So if you like this broadcast, and I say this all the time, if you want this broadcast to continue, go to prisonplanet.tv and get yourself a 15-day free trial. There's a lot of great stuff there. And that's it for the InfoWars Nightly News. Great job to the crew, and thanks to all of our guests, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Many anthropologists and archaeologists believe that before man even discovered the power to harness and use fire, we were involved in agrarian activities. That is, taking the seeds of plants and then replanting them to produce more. The very foundation of our modern civilization and human culture is centered around the planting and cultivation of edible plants, fruits, vegetables, nuts, you name it. And the globalists have been going after gardening. They've been harassing people that have gardens in their front yards or their backyards. They've called for licenses for people to have gardens because you can't trust prisoners in the police state America to be able to grow their own food. That's why I've come to the realization that we need to become self-sufficient. You need to be informed. You need to have the Second Amendment to protect yourself. You need to be politically active to wake up others. You need to filter your water. But you also need to plant a garden. Even if you live in an apartment, you can do this. If you live in the countryside, obviously you can do it on a grand scale. There are so many green belts in areas that humans don't even visit, nearby cities and in suburbs, where people are now more and more planting their own little private gardens and meadows and off the side of the road. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a revolutionary act to unplug from the television, to unplug from the computer and all the globalist propaganda, and to go out in your backyard or your front yard or planters at your apartment or on the roof of the building where you live, and to plant a garden.
Here are some of the amazing deals at InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com. The Survival Seed Vault by My Patriot Supply features only the finest survival heirloom seeds for a robust and hardy garden, even in the toughest of times. The ARC All-in-One Seed Kit contains 70 varieties of 50,000 seeds of fruits, vegetables, medicinal, and culinary herbs. All ARC seeds are heirloom. Each type is labeled and sealed separately for ease of use and longevity. The Deluxe Emergency Seed Bank combines 3 of Emergency Seed Bank's top sellers: the Family Survival Emergency Seed Bank, the Medicinal Herb Seeds Pack, and the Culinary Herb Seeds Pack. We also have starter varieties of the deluxe seed packages for fruit, salad, salsa, peppers, and medicinal herbs and more. Go to the InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com.
A little seed can grow a huge tree that produces fruit for up to 50 years. We have the best life bombs. That's what these are. We have the best weapons against death out there at the lowest prices, waiting for you to lovingly plant them and lovingly grow them and lovingly eat them and share them with others. We will strike back against the New World Order, and this is only one more initiative in our fight against them. So please join us at InfoWarsShop.com, or you can link through at Infowars.com at the InfoWars Seed Center.